I'm a doctoral fellow at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of and academic counselor here at IGNO. And I've been teaching you the paper Indian Government and Politics. The code of this paper is BPSC 132. So far in this paper, we have discussed the block 1 that was pertaining to the approaches to the study of Indian politics. The second block of this paper was the first block, which was pertaining to the approaches to study of Indian politics. It consisted of 3 units, which we have discussed so far. The 3 units that were there in this first block that we have discussed so far, that is the unit 1, which was the liberal approach to Indian politics, unit 2, Marxist approach to Indian politics, and unit 3, Gandhian approach. The second block, it was pertaining to the Indian Constitution, and it consisted of 3 units again. Unit 4 pertaining to the basic features of the Constitution of India. Unit 5, which was pertaining to the fundamental rights, and unit 6, which was related to the directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties. Moving on, we have also discussed the third block of this paper, which was pertaining to the institutions which are present in our democratic setup, namely the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So these are the 3 institutions that we have discussed. Afterwards, in block 4, which was pertaining to society and politics, we had discussed 3 units, that is unit 10, caste, class and tribe, unit 11, which was pertaining to gender, unit 12 pertaining to workers and farmers. And in the last class, we had discussed religion and politics, which is block 5, and as part of that we had discussed unit 13, which was pertaining to secularism. So in today's class we are going to discuss unit 14, which belongs to block 5, and then we are going to discuss our last block, which consists of 1 unit, that is pertaining to parties and political parties and party system in India. So as part of that, we are going to discuss the national and regional level political parties, the social and ideological basis of political parties, the pattern of coalition politics, trends in electoral behavior, the pressure groups, as well as the changing socio-economic profile of legislators. But first of all, we are going to start by discussing unit 14, that is communalism. So identity, it forms an important aspect of life of an individual or group in a society. In a diverse society, there are multiple factors that shape identities. Such factors are culture, language, religion, customs, history, region, economy, etc. So in our country, that is very much evident. In shaping an identity, the numbers of these factors, they vary. The numbers and effectiveness of the factors depend on the context in which identities are formed. Even though multiple factors shape an identity, sometimes a single or some of those factors, they play more dominant role than the other factors. This is true of the role of religion also in shaping an identity. As India is a multi-religious society, it is relevant to understand how religion helps in shaping identities of people, in building harmonious or conflictual relations between people following different religions. So that is what we are going to discuss, how religion affects Indian government and politics, especially given in a multi-religious society like ours. So the role of religion in shaping our identity, that is what we're going to discuss in this paper today. Now, what is communalism? Communalism is an ideology which shapes the vision of members of a community formed on the basis of common religion about themselves, other religious communities, nationalism, and the state. So, in their book, India's Struggle for Freedom, Bipan Chandra and others underline that communal ideology consists of three elements. The first element underlines the belief that people from similar religious community have similar secular interests such as political, economic, social, and cultural interests. The authors of the book term it as the first bedrock of communal ideology. In their book, India's Struggle for Freedom, Bipan Chandra and others underline that communal ideology, it consists of three elements. That is, the first element underlines the belief that people from similar religious community have similar secular interests, such as political, economic, social, and cultural interests. And the authors of the book, India's Struggle for Freedom, they term this as the first bedrock of communal ideology. The second element, it denotes that the people belonging to different religious communities do not have common secular interests, that is, social, economic, cultural, or political interests. And the third element or phase of communalism, it shows a stage in which the relations between different religious communities are seen as mutually incompatible, hostile, or antagonistic. So communalism is linked to another concept, that is communal violence. Both are different but interrelated. Communalism is a consciousness, and when this consciousness gets expressed in terms of violence between two different religious communities, it is called communal violence. Different religious communities do not become communal on their own, nor do their relations turn into communal violence automatically. So religious communities are turned into communal communities by certain sections of society, and they can convert relations between such communities into communal riots. Such sections can be political leaders, activists, middle classes, or community leaders. So these are the sections which turn the religious communities into communal communities, and they can convert relations between such communities into communal riots. So they explain to the members of their respective communities that the other community is responsible for their problems. In certain politically suitable situation or context, they are able to mobilize their respective communities into communal violence. There have been different approaches to the way communalism can be studied. So the first approach has been the approach which may be called the empirical approach, used by various scholars like Asghar Ali, where different communal riots were studied and general conclusions have been drawn. A large number of scholars like Amrita Basu, Paul Brass, Asutosh Varsne can be seen to have followed this approach to test their theories. The second approach has been materialist approach, which argues for foregrounding the study and understanding the social conditions, which included the role and nature of the state, material conditions in which community formations are taking place, etc., to understand the formation of ideology of communalism. So this is the materialist approach, the second approach, which argues for foregrounding the study and understanding the social conditions which included the role of and nature of the state, the material conditions in which community formations are taking place, to understand the formation of the ideology of communalism. The episodes of communal violence are studied as a reflection of these fundamental situations. So K.T. Shah, Bipan Chandra, Achin Vinayak, C.P. Bhamri, Aditya Mukherjee can be seen as the practitioner of this approach. A third approach has been essentialist approach, where the communities are already seen to be different, living across fault lines with essentially separate and defined mutual relationships. So Samuel Huntington, the American political scientist, in his very celebrated book Clash of Civilizations, has presented an outline of this essentialist approach. So the essentialist approach is the third approach where communities are already seen to be different, living across fault lines with essentially separate and defined mutual relationship. Now let us discuss the origins of communalism. So communalism as a belief or as an ideology has been the product of colonial rule in India. In this sense, it is product of modern times in India. Earlier also there were large number of instances of intersect or intercult or religious conflicts and violence, but they were not communal in the sense it came to be understood from the mid-19th century. The communalism in India largely was product of the colonial policies towards different religious communities, especially after the 1857 revolt. The challenges faced by the colonial rulers in the later half of the 19th century became the reasons for them to devise policies that promoted communalism. Among these challenges included criticism of colonial administration by a new intelligentsia, which had emerged in India by mid-19th century. This intelligentsia most often was the product of new English education. And this intelligentsia began to realize that people of India were suffering due to colonial rule, transcending linguistic, caste, sectarian, or cultic identities. The new intelligentsia sought to generate national consciousness against colonial administration. Thus, the new intelligentsia trained in both traditional knowledge and new Western knowledge through English medium wanted an Indian people to emerge as a nation. This consciousness led them to attempt to constitute a national community consisting of Indians of different sections of society. This was to contest the colonial constructs of a society and polity. So the colonial authorities, they responded to the challenge of growing national consciousness being generated by the efforts of new intelligentsia through the following strategies. So debunking the notion that Indians who had multiple diversities could be united as a nation, by creating a colonial knowledge and by highlighting differences among people which existed on the basis of religion, caste, language, etc., and by introducing religion-based representation in legislative and political bodies. So as part of such knowledge, James Mill wrote a book, The History of British India, in which he argued that history of India can be divided on basis of religion into three periods: ancient, medieval, and modern. So Mill contended that ancient period in India's history symbolized India's golden period when she was ruled by the Hindus. In medieval period, the Muslim invaders destroyed the glorious ancient Indian history and established Muslim rule. And the modern period denoted the end of Mughal rule and establishment of British rule in India. Such periodization of Indian history has been used by communal historians and the colonial authorities to divide the society on communal lines. As most of the intelligentsia came from upper caste of the Hindu society, its growth and ideas could be shown to be detrimental to the interest of Muslims by the Muslim intelligentsia and traditional elite. So, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was one such personality. In 1887, Lord Dufferin, who was the then Viceroy, and A. Colvin, who was Lieutenant Governor of the United Provinces, attacked Congress for being anti-imperialist. Syed Ahmad Khan joined the attack thinking that it would increase Muslims' share in administrative and professional positions. He believed that with the growth of Hindu intelligentsia and middle classes, the dominance of Muslims declined. Solution to Muslims' dominance lay in enabling Muslims to get English education. For this, he founded the Anglo-Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College in 1875, which later became AMU, Aligarh Muslim University. Meanwhile, a new Muslim middle class too was emerging at that time. However, its late arrival witnessed an already entrenched Hindu middle class since 1870s, which was quite vocal and anti-colonial in its approach. One of the strategies of traditional Muslim elite and new middle class was to demand that they should be given preferences of representation in public institutions. The demand for reservation in jobs and educational institutions by the middle class soon got converged with the demand of the Muslim elite for more political power via statutory reservations in the legislative and other bodies. This led to the formation of the Muslim League in 1906, which was also encouraged by the British colonial government. In other areas, for example, the British encouraged sections from among the Hindus too with certain favors, which seemed to divide the emerging national unity created by the Indian National Congress. The demand for reservation in government jobs and representation of legislative bodies to the Muslims resulted in similar demands from some sections of the Hindus. A competition between some sections of Hindus and Muslim intelligentsia ensured for reservation in government jobs and legislative bodies. Later, these demands and their views were voiced by the Muslim League. In fact, the earlier Muslim intelligentsia and later Muslim League represented sections of Muslim landlords and middle classes, and their vision and demands were common. For some historians, Hindus had all the glory which was destroyed by the Muslim invaders, while some historians saw the British as destroyer of the glory of Islam. According to them, the Islamic glory had to be restored once again. This could be done by establishing an Islamic rule. These two versions represented two-nation theory. So, the policy level intervention to divide the Indians on communal lines included the introduction of separate electorate through the Indian Councils Act of 1909, also called the Morley-Minto reforms. According to this policy of separate electorate, the 1909 municipal elections, Hindus and Muslims contested from separate constituencies, where candidates and the electorate belonged to the same religion. Separate electorate was political manifestation of communal divide. From the 1920s, the demands for more representation in the councils widened, and so was popular participation. The 1920s saw the emergence of Khilafat movement, which for the first time brought many Muslims into the larger political fold. This meant that there were seeds of separate identities based on non-religious interest, but along the religious lines planted. So, the colonial government, however, organized the Round Table Conference in 1930-32, in which representatives of all conceivable groups and sectional interests were invited. In comparison to Hindus, the rise of Muslim educated class in English was limited. Educated Hindus and Muslims competed for government jobs. It gave a feeling among some sections of the new elite middle class from both communities that because of the other community, they were not getting jobs and representation in political institutions. So the Hindus, they viewed that their interests were antagonistic to Muslims' interests and vice versa. As you have read above, in communalism, the secular interests of different religious communities are antagonistic. Thus, communalism in India grew between the late 19th century and partition of the country. Now let us discuss about communalism and the state. So communalism often leads to communal violence between different religious communities. There are several examples of communal violence in India. Communal violence is also a result of intermingling of religion and politics. In the post-independent India, communalism has become part of competitive electoral politics. According to K. N. Panikkar, politics and communalism have become complementary reinforcing each other in the post-independence period. It can devise policies which can either stop or encourage communalism. It can also play a partisan role in communal politics. The nature of state's role on communalism depends on the nature of pressure of social groups on it and composition of the personnel in state institutions and political context. Thus, the state functions under the pressure of different social groups and classes. These also include religious communities. As we have read above, the colonial rule promoted religious divisions. The policy was based on preferential treatment and discrimination. According to C.P. Bamri, the post-independent period inherited the legacy of religious backwardness and religious conflict. The context of pre-independence period, the state attitude of preference and discrimination, mediation by the British in 1940s between the separatist and nationalist became the context of post-independent state in India. The state in India is placed in paradoxical situation. On one hand, it has to act through rules and regulations, through new technology. On the other hand, it has to deal with the society where symbols, rituals, and inherited social regulatory mechanisms exist. Indian state loses loyalty of the masses if it is perceived to be acting against traditional practices. Muslim Personal Law 1985, Operation Blue Star 1984, Sabarimala case 2019. In a democratic society such as India, the state functions under the pressure of different social forces. It becomes a site of multiple ideologies and tendencies, including secularists and communalists. Like the space in the society, the state also becomes site of contests between different ideologies such as communalism and secularism. In the post-independence period, the Indian state has followed the strategy for managing conflicts of oppression and co-optation. It makes compromises with communalism and casteism, and the exploiting classes have exploited religious sentiments to legitimize exploitation in the society. Zoya Hassan 1990 argues that the state has surrendered to the pressure of religious fundamentalists in Muslim Women's Bill and Ram Janmabhoomi case. Now let us discuss about communalism and media. Media in both its traditional and newer forms helped ideologies and ideas to spread. As has been discussed in The Rise of Public Sphere by Jürgen Habermas in the context of Europe, the public associations, clubs, public gatherings, and later on print media, which included newspapers, novels, textbooks, etc., have all helped many ideas to spread. Benedict Anderson, for example, called the nation as an imagined community because it was created because of spread of imagined ideas of nation by the print media since 18th century onwards. While media plays a decisive role in generating awareness among the people, on several occasions it has contributed to the spread of communal divide in the country. In relation to communalism in India, the media plays an influential role in creation and spread of communalism. Its role becomes crucial in reporting, explaining and commenting on communal riots or violence, about the reasons for occurrence of communal violence, the role of leaders of different communities and politicians. The media includes print media, newspapers, magazines and electronic media, television channels and social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, email, etc. In recent past, fake news has become quite frequent in order to arouse communal passion in the society. Many reports in the media are based on rumors and unverified facts. So the social media, for example, has a reach which very few previous media had in the past. It is also not controlled through censorship and other ways, and therefore any news or information which may cause violence or animosity among different groups of people, it travels rapidly. So communalism is an ideology which preaches that communities are formed on religious lines and members of a community share common interests which are incompatible with the interests of other religious communities. In certain political contexts, communalism can lead to communal violence. This happens because of the role of political or community leaders. So, the communal riots and large-scale violence India has witnessed over last 2 centuries has been the reminder of the divisive politics that the colonial rule could create for its purpose. Communal violence, which the post-independent India has seen, can thus be traced to the colonial period. Sometimes communalism gets expressed in the form of communal violence. This can happen when some sections of leaders or political activists convert relations between religious communities into conflict. In the past few years, social media has also become a source of communal divide. So now let us discuss the sixth block of this paper, which is pertaining to parties and party system in India. And this block consists of one unit, that is unit 15, the last unit, which is parties and party system. So party system in a democracy normally refers to the pattern of interaction and competition between political parties. In India, the pattern of interaction and competition among political parties has given way to the multi-party system. This kind of characterization of the party system is, however, more accurate as of now than that existed a few decades ago. What existed then was the impeccable hegemony of the Congress party, and this was well characterized by Rajni Kothari and Jones in a dominant party system. Such system was a multi-party system in which free competition amongst political parties occurred, but it was the Indian National Congress which enjoyed a dominant position both in terms of number of seats it held in the parliament and the state legislative assemblies, and in terms of its immense organizational strength. Kothari coined the term the Congress system, and Jones called it Congress dominated system. Enormous changes have taken place in the party system in recent years. These changes started taking place from 1967 onwards, but these have become much more pronounced and since the late 80s and early 1990s. The party system has moved away from a one-party dominated system to a multi-party system. It is also referred to as a federalized party system or a coalitional party system. With the party systems that had emerged and developed at the state level in the Indian Union. But before doing so, we look at the regional and state parties in brief. We'll look at regional and state parties in brief, since they have grown enormously in recent years and they play a crucial role in shaping the party system in many of the Indian states. So, classification of political parties. In India, political parties are classified in two ways. One by the academics, another by the Election Commission of India. The former classifies parties based on factors such as their regional support base, policies, ideologies, etc. The Election Commission of India classifies them according to percentage of valid votes polled by them in Vidhan Sabha or Lok Sabha elections in a specific number of states. It classifies political parties into three categories: national, state, and registered parties. Its definition of state parties is most elaborate. In this definition, a party to be called a state party must have been engaged in political activity for at least 5 years and must have won either 4% of the seats in a general election or 3% in a state election. In addition, it must have had the support of 6% of the votes cast. The parties which are called state parties by the Election Commission of India are generally referred to as the regional parties in academic and popular discussions. So, Oliver Heath and Yogendra Yadav consider those parties as regional parties whose social bases are restricted to 1 or 2 states. This definition takes into consideration only the social base of a party and its area of. A registered party is a party that is neither recognized as a state or a national party but is registered with the Election Commission. Such parties are also termed as unrecognized parties. The definition provided by the Election Commission of a regional party is not very satisfactory, since the definition takes into consideration the past performance of a political party. It is not accepted as a proper definition by the academicians. They consider those parties as regional parties whose bases and activities are restricted to a particular state and rooted in both regional aspirations and grievances. The support base of a regional party is limited to a particular state because it identifies itself with the region's culture, language, religion, etc. It also presents the regional perspective vis-a-vis the center and other states. These parties use region and language effectively for electoral benefits. A political party to be recognized as a regional party must satisfy three specific criteria. First, this party, regional party, restricts its area of action to a single region, which in the prevailing Indian situation means a state. Secondly, the parties of this kind typically articulate and seek to defend a region-based ethnic or religio-cultural identity. And thirdly, by their very nature, regional parties are primarily concerned with the local or state level grievances. Party system in Indian states. So state party systems in India have developed in close connection and interaction with the national party system. Closeness of relationships between the state party system and national party system has been termed as the combination of the state party systems by some observers in recent years. This is natural considering that India consists of different states. The changes in the national party system have affected the state party systems, and in turn transformation in the nature of party competition at the state level had affected the national party system substantially. The second development, however, is more pronounced in recent years because of the spectacular growth of regional and state parties in Indian politics. The era of Congress dominance. The party system in India before 1967 has been termed as a system of Congress dominance. It has also been referred to as the Congress-dominated system or the Congress system. Till the fourth general elections, which were held in 1967, state party system in India, like that of the national party system, was dominated by the overwhelming presence of the Congress party. The Congress party dominated in almost all the states, but the domination of Congress was not uniform in all states. The Congress, for example, had to face the toughest competition in former princely states that acceded to the Indian Union after 1947, whereas in other states it almost had an impeccable hegemony. It ruled almost all the states except Jammu Kashmir, where the National Conference had a domineering presence. Kerala was also an exception because of the second general elections in 1957. The Communist Party of India, CPI, emerged victorious and formed a government along with its allies for 2 years till it was dissolved arbitrarily in 1959. A quick reference to some data will help illustrate this point. The Congress was such a dominant force that it secured comfortable majorities in almost all the elections in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies in 1952, 1957 and 1962. Though it never secured more than 48% of votes in Lok Sabha elections, the highest being 47.78 in 1957, it always secured comfortable majority in terms of seats. 364 seats in 1952, 371 in 1957 and 361 seats in 1962. In the state assemblies, except for a few, it secured comfortable majorities almost in all the assembly elections. It secured 42.2% votes and 68.4% seats in 1952, 44.9% votes and 64.9% seats in 1957, 43.6% votes and 61.3% seats in 1962. Electoral data thus indicates that the performance of the Congress in assembly elections was slightly poorer than the Lok Sabha elections. This was because of the nature of resistance offered by the opposition electoral parties. This was because of the nature of resistance that was opposed by the opposition, which included the state and regional formations. Opposition to the Congress in the assembly elections was much more severe than that in the Lok Sabha elections. Let us examine, briefly refer to this position of dominance across some of the bigger Indian states while referring to its performance in the assembly election. In UP, in Uttar Pradesh, assembly elections between 1952 and 1962, the party secured between 47.9 and 36.3% votes. It captured between 390 to 249 seats out of a total of 430 seats. In Bihar, in the same period, the party secured between 41.4 to 42.1% votes, but between 72.2 and 58.1% seats. Similarly, in West Bengal, the Congress secured between 38.9 and 47.3% of votes and between 63% to 62.3% seats. In Andhra Pradesh, after the state was formed, Congress secured between 41.7 to 47.3% votes in 1955, 1957 and 1962 and 187 to 177 seats out of 300. In Tamil Nadu, the party enjoyed a dominant position in the assembly elections of 1957 and 1962. It secured between 45.3 and 46.1% votes and captured 67.5 to 73.6% seats. In Maharashtra, the party secured 48.7 to 51.2% votes in 1952 and 1962. Thus, it is clear that the Congress party enjoyed a dominant position in the electoral politics of the states in the Indian Union, even though it was hardly able to secure the majority of the votes. In fact, it won a majority of seats in assemblies of all states on the basis of plurality of votes against a fragmented opposition. The breakdown of Congress system 1967 to 1989. The dominance of the Congress in the states started crumbling from the mid-1960s. The fourth general elections of 1967 marked the intensification of this change. The party system that emerged in the states after that and continued till 1989 may be referred to as a bipolarized one, in which a weak Congress party was confronted with a united opposition in most of the states. The following pattern of bipolarization was seen in the states for the general elections in the period from 1967 to 1989. In Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh and Delhi, the competition was between Congress and Bharatiya Jana Sangh or Bharatiya Janata Party. In Kerala, Tripura and West Bengal, the competition has been between Congress and the Left Front. In Punjab, Jammu, Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Assam and Goa, the Congress-led regional parties-led alliance emerged, though the Bharatiya Janata Party also gained substantially. In the northeastern states, the contest was mainly between Congress and a variety of regional parties or their alliances. In Tamil Nadu, competition has been mainly between the Dravid Munnetra Kazhagam and the All India Anna Dravid Munnetra Kazhagam. Finally, in 7 major states, Odisha, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Haryana, Gujarat and Karnataka, the Congress retained dominance. One can, however, add that even in these states, opposition grew stronger as well, as we shall notice later. So far as assembly elections are concerned, the following pattern of bipolarization emerged after 1967. One may note that the votes of the Congress party declined much more drastically in the assembly elections than that in the parliamentary one. In Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh and Delhi, the non-Congress votes consolidated in favor of Bharatiya Jana Sangh or Bharatiya Janata Party. The latter emerged as the second most important party. In Punjab, Jammu Kashmir and Assam, Goa, a Congress regional party bipolarization came into existence. Similarly, in the Northeast, a Congress regional party's bipolarization came into existence. though in this case the regional parties were very unstable. Let us have a look at how these changes occurred. We shall refer mainly to the party systems that we witnessed in the state assembly elections. It has been noted earlier that Congress had never secured more than 50% of votes either in parliamentary or assembly elections except in some states, but has always secured huge majorities in terms of seats. This is indicative of the fact that though significant opposition to the Congress existed at the state level, due to the fragmentation in their ranks and because of the rule associated with the first past the post system, the Congress party always emerged victorious in terms of seats. The 1967 election, in fact, put an end, at least for a temporary period, to this disunity in the opposition. The post 1967 period saw the emergence of anti Congress alliances in state after state and thus altered the nature of the contests, particularly for the assembly. These developments resulted in the defeat of the Congress in as many as 8 out of 16 states of the Union. There was also a marked decline in the vote share of the Congress party in the parliamentary elections from 44.7% in 1962 to 40.7% in 1967. In the legislative assemblies, the decline was from 43.6% to 39.9%. As a consequence of the percentage of seats came down from 61.3 to 48.5. The states entered into a bipolar system, the principal contenders being the Congress and almost a united opposition in many of the prominent Indian states. And these opposition parties were also formed from the Congress party only. For example, the Bangla Congress, which unseated the Congress from power in 1967 in West Bengal. It was formed by Ajoy Mukherjee, who himself had been a Congress leader and who then became the first non-Congress chief minister of Bengal, West Bengal. This system continued almost till the end of the 1980s, though on occasions, for example, in 1971 and 1972, the Congress was able to restore its predominant position at the central and to a lesser extent at the state level. We also note that in the early 1970s, the Congress was able to make a comeback after 1972 for a brief period. This position was soon lost by the party in the late 1970s. Let us have a brief look at the nature and pattern of party competition in some states in India since the 1970s. This will help illustrate the point better. In North India, Uttar Pradesh, the Congress from the assembly elections of 1974 onwards was never able to secure 40% of votes. Not even the elections of 1985 that were held after the parliamentary elections of 1984, in which the Congress recorded a landslide victory. One of the other parties like Bharatiya Janata Sangh or that is Bharatiya Janata Party or the Janata Party and later the various factions of Janata Party, Lok Dal, etc., challenged the hegemony of the Congress. In 1974, the Bharatiya Janata Sangh increased its share of votes to 17.1 and secured 61 seats in the assembly. In the 1977 elections, Congress was routed by the Janata Party. Through the Congress Party, though the Congress Party returned to power in 1980, it managed only 37.7% votes. In 1985, the Congress could hardly manage 39.3% votes, though it secured the majority of the seats. The Lok Dal could wrest 21.3% votes and 84 seats. In the West, in Maharashtra, strong challenge to Congress hegemony came in 1978 and later from the mid 1980s. So the Congress Socialist was formed in Maharashtra, Indian National Congress Socialist by Sharad Pawar. In Karnataka, there was the Devraj Urs, who formed the Indian National Congress URSS. In the 1978 assembly elections, the Congress led by Indira Gandhi was routed. In the 1985 assembly election, it secured a majority with around 24% votes. Gujarat also moved closer to a bipolarized system, one from late 1960s. In the 1970s, the Indira Congress was challenged by the Indian National Congress Organization or INCO and the Janata Party in the election of 1985. In both the elections that were held in 1970s, the Indian National Congress Organization had secured more than 23% of votes, though its seat tally was not very impressive in 1972. The Janata Party secured little less than 20% votes in 1985, with only 14 seats in the 182-member assembly. In central India, in Madhya Pradesh, the largest of the Indian states, the Congress was challenged by Bharatiya Janata Sangh and Bharatiya Janata Party in 1972, 1980 and 1985. It was challenged by the Janata Party in 1977. The Bharatiya Janata Sangh secured 28.7% votes in 1980. The BJP secured 30.3% and in 1985 it could secure 32.4% votes. In the 1977 state assembly elections, the Janata Party had secured 47.3% of votes and had formed the government with 230 members. In Bihar, between 1972 and 1985, the Congress never secured more than 35% votes except in 1985. So there was a considerable challenge to it from the Bharatiya Janata Sangh, Bharatiya Janata Party, Indian National Congress Organization, Janata Party, Independents, Lok Dal, etc. In the south, in Tamil Nadu, the party competition in 1967 narrowed down to a two-party competition, first between the Congress and the DMK, and then between the Dravid Munnetra Kazhagam and the All India Dravid Munnetra Kazhagam. In Andhra Pradesh, the Congress popular votes share had started declining from 1978 elections and entered into a bipolar competition from 1983 onwards. In West Bengal, the Congress lost its hegemonic position from 1967 onwards and saw bipolarization from the elections of 1971. Thus, in the country as a whole, barring a few marginal states that remained effectively under the control of the Congress, a bipolar system of party competition emerged. To a large extent, the breakdown of the Congress system was the main factor behind these developments. Towards fragmentation of state party systems, 1989 onwards, the party systems at both levels and at both central, national and state level moved towards a fragmentation from the late 1980s or more particularly from the 1990s. What are the features of these fragmentary systems? At the national level, there has been an end of the one-party dominance and the movement towards a multi-party system. As we have read earlier, this trend started in 1967, and at the state level, however, the systems that exist in the states are different from the national level. Many states have moved towards a two-party system, and probably this is the most prominent feature of party competition at the state level. At the national level, since 1990s, the competition has narrowed down to two different alliances, one led by BJP and the other led by the Congress. At the state level, the competing parties differ from state to state, but in most of the states, it is a two-party system. In many states, it is a multi-party system where the important contenders are Congress, BJP, and state or regional parties. In some of the states, the competition is primarily between state or regional parties, though national parties also occupy a significant space in those states. So, in conclusion, we can say that the party system changed from one party dominant system to multi-party system at the national level, a system that is noticeable by the presence of a dwindled Congress party, a significant but inadequate expansion of the BJP, and an enormous increase in the strength of regional and state parties in national politics. The changes started taking place since 1967 onwards, but have become much more pronounced since the last 2 decades. And parallel to these changes at the national level, significant changes have taken place in recent years at the state level as well. And in this fragmented system, the competition is primarily between two parties, whether national or regional. And there are indications that this fragmented system will stay. And the possibility is that more and more states will move towards a bipolar party system. So we have discussed communalism and party system today, and with that we are over with this paper, BPSC 132, Indian Government and Politics. Thank you so much. Namaste.